Hey guys, welcome back. So I'd like to show you a resource that I think you'll find incredibly helpful and valuable, especially when it comes to perspective, and then also with mark making as well. So if you follow the link that I provided there, it'll take you to a DeviantArt page here. And these brushes here, NYX Photoshop CC 2018 brushes, right? And if you're interested here, he has a YouTube channel, Art Bros, if you'd like to check that out. He does a lot with digital painting, and I found this brush packet that he's put together to be really in line with what I'm trying to get across, especially when it comes with perspective. He's got some really cool, interesting brushes for mark making, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well once we get that going. But right here is the download link, so go ahead and download that. And it's a little bit of a bigger file, 200 megabytes, so it might take a minute or two. And once you have that downloaded, it should automatically install into your Photoshop brushes. And I already have it, so if you come to your brushes here, and I've got quite a bunch of brushes here, but if you come down right here, NYX brushes, etc., this is what we're looking at right here. So if you open up the folder, and let me just collapse this, there's a bunch of different folders that are organized for particular brushes, and I'll leave this to you to explore and go through because there's a lot to unpack here, but the ones that I want to show you in particular for the exercises that we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you if we come down to grids right here. So there's a few brushes here that I think you'll really like. So if you recall from our very first project, what do we have here? Right? So when it comes to digital painting and establishing a composition, this could be one that you use to help get things in a structure and composition that you'd like. So keep that one in mind there. That can be helpful. But the one that I want to show you is the vanishing point brush. So this right here will automatically give you a radiating set of lines from any vanishing point that you choose. So when I was making that perspective video, I was actually just using this to demonstrate how those lines would come out from a vanishing point. So this brush right here, you can scale it. I think it'll go up to 5,000 here. But if you need it to go larger, so for example, wherever, so I'm on layer 2, if I just click, okay, right, and it's just like any other brush. You can set, you can set the opacity, you can set the thickness, you can set how big. But if I want to make that larger here, if I need it to go larger than the brush actually allows, then just treat it as an object. I can Command T. Oh, actually, I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to put it on a new layer because that one had the background included. So if I click there, so because it's on a new layer, I'll just Command T, and then let me zoom out a little bit, and then I can shift, and I can scale this as large or as small as I want. So for example, if you were doing 2 or 3 point perspective where your vanishing points were off the paper, then this is how you would go about doing it, is you would scale it to the size that you need, right? And then put it wherever that vanishing point is going to be. So that's one thing I wanted to show you here, is this vanishing point brush, because you'll have two weekly exercises that you'll need to use this brush for, and I'd like to see it in your layers panel so I can come in and check your perspective. So that's the brush there. And then for the last project that we're going to be doing, so you have a digital painting project that needs to show some semblance of linear perspective or atmospheric perspective, but ultimately in the end you just have to have you're going to be doing a digital painting that has to show a realistic depiction of depth, right? So maybe you don't necessarily have architectural buildings, but it should be clear if you're looking at your foreground to midground to background, it should be clear that there's a sense of depth in your painting. But what I wanted to show you is that there's a lot of brushes here that can be really interesting and really helpful. So for example, there's things like foliage, right? You could come in here and you could come in here and do some really, really cool things. And again, there's stamp brushes. But just the note that I'll say is, play around with these, but also just keep in mind that a fancy set of brushes are not going to make your work strong if you don't understand how to draw, right? And I'd like to think that, having a mastery over just a few brushes and knowing how to really push the brush dynamics and play with things and really developing your skills as a digital painter rather than relying on, a brush for a different brush for every single different technique or image or thing that you're trying to represent, because you can see there's a ton in here that you know you could spend hours just looking for the right leaf, right? Just the right patterns here. So um, it's like that. There's a quote by Bruce Lee that says, I do not fear the man that knows 10,000 kicks or something like that. I fear the man that knows one kick but can do it 10,000 times, right? So kind of think of that philosophy here is, explore these brushes and play around with them. I've used, I did an example that is down in one of the other videos where I kind of used some of these, but I also used some of my own brushes, and I did a lot with the mixer brush. So just keep that in mind, just as a good rule of thumb and practice that, just don't be overly reliant on specialty brushes, because the brushes that Photoshop has innately offer you a tremendous amount of control and versatility if you know what you're doing and actually have developed some drawing skills, right? So just keep that in mind, right?